Standing here today at Devil's Hole State Park near present-day Lewiston, New York, on the Niagara frontier. In the background here you've got the Niagara River. With the conclusion of the French and Indian War in 1763, the Ottawan leader Pontiac famously was visited by a vision of uniting the various tribes of the Great Lakes region, Western New York, Western Pennsylvania, Ohio, and the Michigan area in one final push of unity against stemming the British expansion into this part of what was then the colonies of North America, the British colonies of North America. In September of 1763, a supply train coming from Fort Schlosser to the south and east of here, heading upriver along a path to Fort Niagara to the north, was ambushed by a group of Seneca. The wagons were driven off the roads at the top of the gorge and driven down into the gorge. Two men got away, returned back to Fort Schlosser, retrieved a group of British 80th Light Foot, who came back up here, was attacked again by the Seneca, and again driven off. It effectively shut down for some time this British supply route, which was key to the British maintaining control of this Niagara frontier in that post French and Indian War era, when the British had effectively kicked the French out of the region but had difficulty maintaining it. The Pontiac's rebellion would continue quite strongly for the United Native Tribes through that first year, raiding and burning and laying siege to such forts as Fort Detroit in Michigan, Fort Pitt in present-day Pennsylvania at the forks of the Ohio River. But then a couple years later, Pontiac's rebellion comes to an end in central Pennsylvania at Bushy Run Battlefield. The Niagara River is another one of these superhighways of that early colonial period in the history of North America. Prior to it being used as a trade route by Europeans, it had been used for hundreds of years as a portage, because up here to the north a few miles you wind up at Niagara Falls. Up here to the south a few miles you wind up at Niagara Falls with a 160-foot famous drop there, one of the great wonders of the world. And then all the way up to the north you're at Fort Niagara on what is present day the American side, and Fort George on the Canadian side. This was a portage that was important to, at this relatively calm part of the Niagara River, that you could get canoes and bateaux across the river here up onto a trail and continue supplying the interior of the region here. So it was a key, another one of these key control points, not only for the native people and then the French and then the British and that whole colonial era up through the French and Indian War, Pontiac's Rebellion, the American Revolution, and eventually culminating in the War of 1812, when effectively British rule is ousted from North America. So today it has its own history. You'll see the whole area is laced with these hydroelectric plants that power the grid of much of the Northeast, coming from Niagara Falls again down to the south. So it's a beautiful spot. The Battle of Devil's Hole is called such because down here along the way there's a cave known as Devil's Hole, and then it's up here where this present-day road is, where that trade route would have been between Fort Schlosser and Fort Niagara. So if you squint back through history, you can see why this area was so important to so many people back then. And then when you look to the present day, you see why it remains an important part of the North American infrastructure.